Hi everyone, my name is Karina Rao and I lead ParaFi's Investor Relations team. We wanted to welcome you to today's session of our virtual fireside chat series. Today we'll be hosting the CEO and co-founder of Redefine, Shira Brezis. ParaFi is an investor in Redefine and one or more of its managed funds may utilize the Redefine platform. Please note that this fireside chat is not to promote, endorse, or recommend ParaFi's advisory services or any fund managed by ParaFi, nor is this a recommendation of any particular investment, protocol, security, or other asset. The views discussed in this chat are the views of the individuals and not of Redefine or ParaFi. This fireside chat is being recorded. We are excited to offer these fireside chats and hope that our audience respects the intimacy of the event. While there's no formal duty of confidentiality, please do not repost specific quotes or views from the discussion to Twitter or other social media. As a reminder, we encourage everyone to submit questions during the discussion. With that, I will introduce our speakers for today, Yedid-Botton, one of our partners at ParaFi, and Shira Brezis, the CEO and co-founder of Redefine.
Thanks, Karina, and thanks everyone for joining us. So today we have the pleasure of hosting this ParaFi chat with Shira. Shira is the CEO and co-founder of Redefine, which is a crypto security company. And Redefine was founded in 2021 with a focus on Web3 security. And since its founding, Redefine has secured over $4.3 billion of transactions through their smart contract monitoring technology. And before co-founding Redefine, Shira actually gained extensive cybersecurity experience working for the Israeli government for over a decade. And it's not surprised that Shira has been involved in crypto since 2012. And in 2018, actually, she had the opportunity to start the FinTech labs in the technology department of the Israeli Prime Minister office, which we'll talk about more. And the last thing I'll say is that Shira is not just a cryptocurrency entrepreneur. She has a PhD in the field of law and economics from the University of Chicago Law School and an MBA from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Last year, ParaFi had the opportunity to invest in Redefine seed round. And since then, ParaFi has been a close client and close design partner to Redefine's teams, to Shira, across their technology and product development. So with that said, Shira, welcome to ParaFi's Fireside Chat. Welcome.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So, before we even kind of dive into what Redefine is, maybe you want to walk us through how someone with a business, an econ and law degree ends up running a smart contract crypto security company.
It's pretty straightforward. I'm kidding. Yeah, I guess I need to answer for that. My career started actually really early on in the military. So in Israel, there's a mandatory service. So pretty young, 18, I was already drafted, and I served for over 3 years in a technology unit in the intelligence corps, doing different types of intelligence and technology. Was the best thing ever, and I kind of knew then that this is what I wanted to pursue long term, but I didn't want to make this decision so young. So I finished my service and I went to law school, which was my original plan, and I kind of took it a bit far, right? So I went to law school in Israel. I did an MBA also in Hebrew University, but then I moved to the US to pursue higher education in the field of law. And as you said, I went to the University of Chicago. I was really intrigued by the economic analysis of the law, which is the thing of the University of Chicago. I think it was actually invented in the law of economics in the University of Chicago. So basically it means to apply microeconomics to any analysis you make in law in order to determine what is the most efficient outcome. So I think it's just a great education to have. I already knew that I probably won't be practicing long-term or in academia long-term. Didn't stop me from going all the way. I also did my New York bar and my California bar to aggressively pay back tuition. But when I went back home to Israel, they wouldn't let me to apply for a government position from abroad. So I went home after several years in the US, and within 24 hours, I already applied for the government position, and I ended up going to do what I wanted to do at 18, which was a lot of technology and intelligence. How does that lead to the crypto startup? That's a different question. So I guess I was working for the government for about 12 years, doing different projects of cybersecurity vulnerabilities. And my most recent position, I had the opportunity to found the FinTech labs for the innovation department under the technology. So that makes more sense, right, from there.
Yeah. So would you say that it was the your passion for incentives and economics that kind of like took you into crypto, or was it something else? Because you began doing work for the government almost 12 years ago, which kind of take us right back to the very early days of Bitcoin in 2011 or so. So where did your interest in crypto come from? Was it a personal passion, or was it something at work?
Yeah, so this was really personal. I almost feel like a lot of people who are in crypto have a person. I mean, some people, I guess, are just smart enough and they don't need the background to get it. But a lot of people, there's a reason why they're in crypto, and it's somehow related to their background. So I have many employees from Russian descent, and they just naturally understand why centralized power is dangerous, right? And I have one of my other investors. He's from Venezuela. And one of the stories I love about him is how, as a kid, for his bar mitzvah, he already asked for dollars from the guests. He said, "I don't accept the local money." He already knew at 13 that the local money is worthless. It's that sad, but very true. So for me, I grew up in Israel and I lived in the US. So I was only personally exposed to pretty decent, financial system and financial institutions. But my family are Holocaust survivors. And so this was always in the background. This is something I kind of grew up with, and it's never a good story. Holocaust survivors, it never has a happy ending. But beside from all the tragedy and all the people that are missing, and then my mom's brother was murdered in Auschwitz at the age of 12. So this was always present. But beside that, there was also this financial aspect that I was aware of, right? So even though it was never specifically the topic, but it was always there. So how they had a family business and they were very wealthy before the war, and suddenly there was a law passed that Jews are not allowed to own a business, so they couldn't own their own business, and later on, the access to the bank account was terminated, and their biggest asset, I assume, the house and the main street, was taken, and they moved to a small apartment with like 5 other families in the ghetto. So you lose your money when you most need it, right, in such a situation. And my grandfather was, I think he was an entrepreneur, actually. he was very smart about it, and he liquidated himself really early on. So he spent the war constantly, he bought a lot of, before they cut the access to his bank account, he took out a lot of the money, and he bought like things. He bought watches and gold and jewelry, and he just paid his way through the war and bribed people when needed and saved their lives and other people's lives when he could pay for it. And of course, he wasn't 100% successful, but he was able to survive. And he even built a bunker underneath the house where he put the stuff. And we have this map that he drew how to find it. And at the end of the war, when he came back home, there were Nazis who took over his house. So he knew he was going to knock on the door. He's dead, right? But he waited for them to leave, and he got in. He still had the keys, and they never found his hiding place. So he took whatever was left there, and they moved to Israel with the money they had. So, they were broken people. They lost their son. They lost their parents, their siblings. They spoke no Hebrew, but they were not poor. They were not refugees. They were immigrants. So I just remember when I saw crypto, I saw it first in 2012, and I started reading about it, and I started getting really excited about the ideology. And the first thought I had in mind was, what would my grandfather do if he had Bitcoins, right? The whole thing would have been different. I feel like this really gives you the opportunity to be a citizen of the world, to be able to move seamlessly, to just be out the door when you need to be out the door. So it's a bit post-traumatic, I guess, attitude, but yeah, that's what got me super excited about crypto.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's fair to say that whether it's that specific experience or other things that you're seeing today across the world, still kind of resonates with a broad audience, whether it's the conflicts in the Ukraine or Middle East or some volatile countries. You have a large number of people who have their wealth and key financial stability kind of always at like a risk of being dismantled or confiscated by whoever's in power. So I think that
Exactly.
resonates with a lot of people, that sometimes even question what's the purpose of crypto. Maybe for people that have grown up in the U.S. that have the top capital market in the world, sometimes the thesis may not be as clear to some others that that kind of exist outside of the U.S. in more volatile financial environments. So you develop this personal passion for crypto based on kind of your own personal experience. And from what I understand, you have the opportunity to focus on crypto and the blockchain really in your work, especially in the last few years of your government work in Israel. How did that come up?
So in my most recent years there, I was already under the innovation department. I kind of learned this about myself throughout the process, throughout my career, that I like building, that I always, when I had the opportunity, I went somewhere where it wasn't at all clear what the job is at all. There was no job description compared to a lot of other positions that I could have taken that were very, very clear. Just never was my thing. And so I got to the innovation department, and then the FinTech Labs was just a great opportunity. I actually met my co-founder Alon. We founded it together. So this is practically our second startup together in a way. So for 3 years, we were doing crypto projects for the government. It was fintech, so not only, but mostly crypto, a lot of blockchain analytics, a lot of tracking of terror funding on the blockchain. So I guess the reason I got the job, right, was also because I knew a lot about it. And the reason I applied for the job was because I couldn't believe my fortune, right? I could now actually mix business and pleasure.
I think there's many people out there that joke that Satoshi Nakamoto is like really like the CIA or some other secret intelligence agency in the world. Why did the government develop an interest for crypto? Like, was it like a specific event that really kind of brought to the surface, hey, this is something that we need to focus a lot of resources to because we're seeing terror financing or something? Or how did that really kind of surface across the world for governments?
I think it's an evolution. So the better we all got with AML and working together, everybody, like all the main nations around the world, preventing the transfer of illegal funds, of cash, of terror funding, it became harder and harder for people to actually pay for illicit activity. And so terrorists will resort to crypto, just kind of like organized crime, like you see ransomware, like you see many other things. And so it made a lot of sense to look for them there.
But was it like something that was it like from the early days of Bitcoin of 2011, 2008 that this kind of was like a trend, or was like a specific shift somewhere along the long history of crypto that made terrorists or some other financial criminal organizations shift their focus from traditional fiat methods for financing to the blockchain?
It took much, much longer. I don't think anybody of those were. 2008 was just, nerdy cryptographer on the blockchain. No, much, much later, I would say. So even 2018, when I started with the FinTech Labs, it was very early on, even for terrorists, right? It's the way with technology. It takes time until people get it, until people understand. So there were several entrepreneurs in place already. And also, by the way, there was still enough ways, 2018, there was still enough way to transfer money illegally elsewhere, but it became harder and harder. So I think by now it's very obvious that a lot of terror organizations are using it. And it took time. It took time for the government to realize, it took time for the terrorists to realize it. So everybody learns. And it was very interesting to build the tools early on, to be prepared. We were one of the early users of the Chainalysis network. We actually, I think, are their design partner for the on-premise system that they built for government. So we worked closely with them, kind of helping them design the right solution for those specific cases and scenarios.
Yeah, that's very helpful. I would just like to remind everyone who's tuned in and dialed in that if you have questions for the Q&A, you can always type them into the chat box, and we'll go through them towards the end of the chat. So coming back to the conversation, Shira. So I think at this point, many people that are dialed in may actually be wondering, well, okay, Shira's experience is awesome. Like, what actually is Redefine? So maybe you want to hold our hand and kind of walk us through what the product and technology are.
Yeah, so the reason I started Redefine was, I finished in the innovation department. Every 3 years or so, you finish your project. Our product was used, widely by the community, and I was expected to do something else. And with crypto, you know what it's like, right? It's very hard to go cold turkey. So I changed my mind. My original plan was to work for the government until I'm like, old and retire and keep doing what I did. It was the dream job for me. But as soon as I realized crypto is no longer in the picture and I realized this is what I want to do, and I really think this is the revolution of our time, of our generation, and I just wanted to participate, then I decided together with my co-founder to quit our jobs and to start Redefine. And so, to be honest, originally, we were not necessarily thinking about security at all. We were going to build something. We're builders, and we went to DeFi because that was just the next step in terms of the crypto evolution. I thought it was the next step in the right direction. And we wanted to build, we had a specific idea of how to have help people, access DeFi. But once we started working within the space, basically because of our background, it was so obvious to us that security tools are missing. It was so blunt, right? In fiat, you have something to protect your computer, your phone, your server, your internet connect. You have so many things, your cloud, whatever. And then you come to crypto and there's nothing, absolutely nothing. We've seen users who were transacting in billions of dollars and they were running their Excel, management on an Excel sheet. They were running the risk on an Excel sheet. So we immediately said, okay, what are the chances? How many people with solid cybersecurity background are also crypto native and active in the space who could do something about it? So they were already auditing companies. That is true. That part was already kind of like happening, but no other tools. And so we decided to start doing that, doing tools. We chose specifically the user side and we started building that.
And like, as an example for like people that have never transacted with a smart contract, how would you kind of like define or describe the Redefine product, and really how is like Web3 security different from Web2, kind of to your point, or like, if you would kind of like help contextualize, like, is Redefine's product most closely to an antivirus, is it to like an insurance, is it an auditing contract, does it have AI that like knows where the risk is? How does it actually protect users from transacting on the blockchain? Your website says that there's been $12 billion lost to DeFi exploits. How is Redefine actually kind of helping secure those transactions?
Right. So before DeFi, the biggest problem in crypto in terms of security was custody. If you look at the Bitcoin blockchain, it's super secure just by being so distributed. So every attack was always the same. You need to get private keys or somehow, compromise the key management of an endpoint. And an endpoint can be a user, but it could also be a bank, and it could also be Coinbase. These are all endpoints. Some of them are huge endpoints, but none of them is the blockchain itself. So, and that's because when you attack, you need to find one single point of failure to attack. You can't attack the Bitcoin blockchain because whatever you're going to make, any changes you're going to make, they're going to be like 55,000 other places at the same moment that are going to be inconsistent with whatever it is you change, and your attack will fail. And this is why we've never seen a successful attack on the Bitcoin blockchain. So no one was ever able to, like fake a block, right? Or erase a block. We have never seen that. And we're not going to see that also. However, DeFi and smart contracts, they change the rules now, because now it's very, very different. Now there's code involved. It's not just the transfers of money. Now there's language written. And when there's language, when there's code, there's always going to be vulnerabilities. I've seen it in my career all the time, every time. This is almost inevitable. And it's endless also, because code keeps changing and code keeps being edited. And, it's always going to open room for more and more attacks. So Solidity, which most smart contracts are written in, but also other languages, is new to the attacker as well as for us, the defender. So it's an interesting ball game, because we all started from scratch, but it is vulnerable. And so now we see all these attacks that are sophisticated. You could see front-end attacks where people attack the front end, maybe the website of the app, and change the transaction that you're getting to sign. And so this is one type of an attack. We see oracle manipulation. We see, I mean, we see code vulnerabilities, classic code vulnerabilities. There are many, many attacks. And by the way, you get both Web 2 and Web 3 attack combined. We get the double the trouble, as I say. So we've seen all those attacks, and what we have built are just a system for a user. So you could either use it, straight as we were focused on the institutional user. So if you're a hedge fund like yourself, or if you're a family office or a bank, you could use our system to monitor your transaction, to run a due diligence automated on every smart contract you meet to understand what it is you're about to be interacting with. We use the firewall, which is really a firewall between the wallet and the app, to kind of translate to you, give you visibility, what it is you're signing, what it is you're approving. Today, the common practice is blind signing, which is insane, right? And then we have also our DeFi Dome, which is an automated response system for last resort.
Do you want to explain what blind signing is for those who may not know?
Yeah, so today all the wallets out there are doing the same thing. I mean, you want to sign a transaction, they will, hand you the transaction to sign, but basically you see a hexadecimal code and you need to, people told me, we close our eyes and we hit approve, right? You don't know what it means. And oftentimes an attack will change this transaction. So in a way, custody is no longer the solution here, because you can have super safe custody, right? You can have a Fireblocks wallet or a GK8 or whatever, good key management. But if you yourself are inviting someone to reach into your wallet by signing an approval and saying, oh, yes, please reach your hand into my very secured wallet that I'm inviting you in, then you have no one to blame, right? Because it's not the custody that is the problem, it's the transaction that you just signed that is the problem. And I believe, by the way, that blind signing is gonna disappear. We run a simulation on the block for every transaction you run, but that's easy. Everybody can run a simulation, and people started doing it, by the way, after we did. I think the hardest part is to give you not just the visibility, but to give you also, we use our insight engine to give you clarity, what it is you're signing and should you even sign it. So we have a team of security researchers, solid background of cybersecurity, looking at every attack. So there have been about 200 major attacks in the past 2 years, and million, scams and phishing and smaller ones. And we create what we call in classic cybersecurity signatures, right, on the behavior of the attacker. And so once we do that, we can identify a future attack. We can warn the user, because we've seen this before. And because it's heuristics, it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but it's enough for the behavior to be reminding us of something that we've seen before, for us to be able to say, do not sign this transaction. This is an attack about to happen.
So is the idea really that, if I want to transfer Ethereum to you, and I go to my wallet, and I can have a very secure custody solution where the private keys are secure and everything. That's not what Redefine's focused on. What Redefine's focused on really is making sure that when I say I want to send Ethereum, or I want to stake my Ethereum, or I want to interact with a decentralized finance smart contract, that contract is actually saying what it's actually doing what it's saying it's going to do, so that Joe Schmo, the hacker, doesn't pretend that this is saying, hey Kevin, this is a transaction for you to actually put your ETH on Compound or trade it on Uniswap, but really there's some code in there that actually steals my funds and sends them to Joe Schmo. Is that like a correct representation of what like Redefine technology does in some ways?
It's very correct for some of it. This is exactly the description of the firewall, which is exactly what you said. It's an extra layer of security for the wallet. So we definitely don't do multi-party computation and custody. We work with the custody companies. We have pilots with a lot of them actually, and we're looking now to work with more wallets, either retail wallets or institutional wallets, to give them this extra layer of security. So what we provide for them are tools for the users to run due diligence, are tools for the users to understand what it is they're signing, and then monitoring tools. So when your money is already out of your custody, obviously the custody is no longer watching them, and we're going to be watching over the money, whether it's in a liquidity pool or a bridge, to see if there's an attack. And we've seen those attacks. Some of them are easier to track, and some of them are becoming more and more sophisticated. So the system is really is very, very deep. So for example, if I look back at the Badger DAO attack, that was December 2021. $120 million were stolen because somebody attacked the front end of the of Badger DAO, and they changed the spender. They did something very simple to detect. They changed the spender to a wallet, to an EOA. So our system could have easily said, and actually did say at the time, do not sign this transaction. You're never supposed to give money, as you said, as you think it's going to the protocol, but it's going to someone's wallet. So it's very easy to detect. But then attackers became better. So last year in the summer, I think there was the I think it was the convex one, where now the spender is not a wallet. Okay, the attacker got smarter. Now the spender is a smart contract. So now it's not so easy to track. But for us, it's still, we run the due diligence on the smart contract. So very easily we can tell you, I mean, this contract was deployed yesterday. Only 3 people transacted with it. It was paid for by a mixer. This is clearly not Uniswap, right? So we can still do this. It's just a bit of a deeper analysis in order to look at it. And then you look at later attacks. So I think a month ago, I saw the ANKR protocol on was it Binance Chain, I think, where the attackers got the keys, got the private keys, and so they deployed a contract as a proxy to the contract. So this is much harder to detect, right? Because if you're looking at an outside contract that was paid for by a mixer that someone else is, has deployed, it's easier for you to be suspicious. But what if the protocol itself, right, throughout their legitimate wallet is now using the proxy to upload and so here we use really deep tools. So for example, for this we use symbolic execution running on the smart contract, and there was something off about it because it gave you like access to unlimited minting, right? But you need to do much deeper analysis in order to track all of those.
So that kind of begs the question of who's on the other side of this exploit. Again, like your website says that there's $12 billion of cybercrime specific to DeFi, $1.6 billion of rug pulls and scams. Like, are these insider jobs? Is it nation states? Is it some college kid kind of like hacking things? As it's happened a couple times, believe it or not. So who's actually exploiting this tens of billions of dollars from DeFi? Where is the money going? Is it for cybercrime and terrorism, or is it just like someone tinkering around the smart contract and find getting lucky?
So the answer is all of the above, right? It's one big party. The reason people are attacking in DeFi is, if you look at Web 2, for you to actually, like if you do a Web 2 attack, let's say you're able to get into someone's system, now you steal whatever, you steal information, and now you need to monetize. There's like stage B of the attack. How do you make money out of it, right? You can use extortion or ransomware. You can sell it maybe if there's some value to the information. Maybe you can try and sell it, on the dark web, but it's not easy to make money of an attack, of a cyber attack, if this is what you're trying to do. But Web3 is fun because the attack itself is already monetizing, right? This is really breaking into a bank, literally. And so you find everybody here. You find the college kids, and you find those that sit in the basement, but you also find North Korea, and you find organized crime. And by the way, it's pretty easy to tell when you look at an attack who's behind it, not in terms of, I don't know necessarily to identify who's behind it, but I can identify the profile of the person behind it. So if there's a scam that somebody was just, doing something random, trying to just give airdrop tokens and get people to go to his fishy website, yeah, that could be a kid. But if you see an attack that is well sponsored, well organized, took a long time, where the person also put a lot of time and thinking into how am I hiding, my whereabouts early on, where I'm coming from. And moreover, we see attacks where they thought in advance about how they're going to run away with the money. We see now sophisticated ways to do it, not just using a mixer, but just also doing, cross-chain transfers and smart ways. That this is a professional attacker. If he took the time to plan ahead, not just the attack, but also the preparation and also how to, get, home safe afterwards. It takes time, it takes money. We've seen attacks. I remember the specific one, I think it was the Polychain one, where $600 million were stolen in 12 seconds. So it was, I think it was a flash loan. On one hand, it's discouraging if you look at it this way, because 12 seconds, what can you actually do? But once you look closely on the blockchain, you find breadcrumbs. At that specific one, we found breadcrumbs of preparation that went 330 days back prior to the attack. This is a year job of few teams that were actually working day and night to actually successfully pursue this. This is not a 12 seconds attack at all. This is a year attack. And this is not, I mean, I don't know any college kids who are that devoted and that well financed. So yeah, you got to see everybody. And you know, it's actually interesting. It's like playing a chess game at the same time with beginners, but also with really, really strong, you know, grandmeisters.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'm sure we have a lot more to talk about, but I want to, you know, kind of change topics. And you know, so you raised your seed round beginning of last year, 2022, and I think, you know, to say the least, probably the last 12 months didn't really turn out how you expected with everything that's happened in crypto. How did the last year really force you to adapt and evolve your strategy, your business, or was it from day one the same idea that you and Alan had from the beginning is the same idea today, or what did you encounter throughout the past 12 months that have made you better?
So I think we were very, very lucky in terms of the fact that we built our system in a very flexible way. So the bedrock of our system is our insight engine, which we keep enriching with more and more sophisticated tool. But what you make of it and what product you make out of it, that's already something that you can decide based on the market. So as I said, originally, we were very, very focused on institutional users. And by the way, I still strongly believe in this market. It's not like I'm giving up on this market at all. I'm just saying it's going to take some time before this market is backed. And thanks to Sam Bankman-Fried, probably a bit longer than originally it was supposed to take. But that's okay. If you're in crypto long enough, you learn to be patient and learn not to be, you know, too upset about those ups and downs. But what we do in the meantime is, as I said, we're thinking in sense of wider distribution in terms of what we can sell in terms of using our insight engine. So started working with retail wallets as well, because obviously retail needs security also. Start looking into other ideas, maybe some of the platforms, for example, Uniswap, or people who are selling tokens would want the API for our information. So we have some design partners now on that. Maybe it's a good idea when we stop selling all those things online without giving a security score right next to them to explain that this is malicious, right?
What was the biggest surprise of 2022 for you? To your business specifically?
Oh, that's a hard question. I think I was a bit frustrated when all those terrible things happened, one after the other, all the centralized entities collapsed, and people blamed it on DeFi eventually, meaning people said, oh, I'm not touching DeFi ever again. And I'm like, why? We just proved our point, right? All of those centralized entities just prove that we are in the right, that this is where you should put your money in. And still people, I think, sometimes they're just not into the details. Sometimes when you lose so much money, you just don't want to hear anything at that point. And I think the market will recover from it. But this was a surprise to me. The fact that the market did not make this conclusion, this connection between everything and DeFi. Maybe, you know what, I'll give them that. So I guess Terra Luna, right, that collapsed, that was decentralized. I guess the analytics there was a problem, but otherwise everything else was fully centralized. And I would want the market to be as sophisticated to say, I am not changing anything. I'm still transacting on DeFi. I'm continuing as usual, because this is not where the problem lies. And it's not the case. It's not the case, because when we started, we were at $40 billion, on DeFi, and then it became almost 300 total value locked, and now we're back to 40 where we started. So yeah, the market didn't agree with.
Well, I guess, you know, if you're a family office and you kind of have the choice between, you can trust your money to a centralized exchange like FTX and have the risk that like Sam Bankman-Fried runs away with your money, or you give it to a smart contract and then, you know, some nation state hacker steals your money. Like, how do you think that people are thinking about the risk reward trade-offs between CeFi and the counterparty risk that exists there, and DeFi and the smart contract and cybersecurity risk that exists there?
first of all, the risk is much more distributed on DeFi for sure, right? And I feel like the state-sponsored and all of those attacks, they're going to be solved eventually. Most of those attacks are preventable, by the way. If you look at the past 10 months or so, our system would have already prevented all the front-end attacks and most of the scams of the phishing. So this is just buy, security tools, and this is also for the platform. Just get, use best practices. A lot of it is preventable. However, human greed, I don't think is preventable. So I just saw I think it's the Netflix show about Bernie Madoff, right? And the end is, I mean, we all know the end, right? So it's no spoiler here. But at the end, they're saying something like, one day there's going to be another Bernie Madoff, right? And it's true. And we have our own now in crypto. We have it now. So I feel like, yeah, do you trust people or do you trust code? I would trust code anytime over people.
Yeah, that's well said. What is your you've been in business for over a year at this point. You've grown your team. Your product is kind of clearly has a very valuable use case and problems that it's solving. What is your vision for the Redefine product in the years to come? What role will it play in the ecosystem as you kind of think of it?
So I would want Redefine to really be associated with Web3 security in terms of branding. We want to set the standards. When we started building in this space, there was nobody doing what we were doing. Nobody. For maybe the first 7 months, I kept telling Alon, my co-founder, are we doing something wrong? Why isn't anybody else doing this? Because it made no sense. If you look at fiat, there's so much activity in so many security companies, and then in crypto, there was nothing really, absolutely nothing. And then everybody came. So now there are a lot of companies. So when we started doing simulations of the transaction, now I see at least 20 other companies doing simulations of transactions. Some do it better than others. Some of them are even freemium. Again, it's not necessarily the best security level, but it's a start. So I feel like what we do is set the standard. Now we're building monitoring tools that I hope will set the standard. We're working a lot on kind of like implementing best practices for some of the users. And I think, I feel that we're pioneers in Web3 security, and I would like to help build this space. I don't think it's going to be a one company, a winner takes it all. I think it's eventually going to be a village of a lot of companies working together, sharing information also, and giving security from different angles. So people, it's really important for them to audit the code, and some people will give tools for the developers, and we're going to be giving the endpoint security, which is so important. And so all together, hopefully we can solve this and make it a safe neighborhood.
Yeah, that's great. ParaFi is a great user of the Redefine product, and it's I don't know exactly how many millions or hundreds of millions of dollars of volume we've secured through your application, but we definitely kind of see the problem that it's solving, and we're excited to continue to be Redefine investors. So I think that we can transition now to the Q&A session. And again, just as a reminder to everyone that dialed in, you can punch in your questions if you have any question that you want to ask Shira. Type it into the box. We have already a few questions. So the first question that we have is, you touched on the DeFi Dome a few times throughout the conversation. Can you share a little bit more about what it is and what it actually does, and how is it actually different from the Insights engine?
Yeah, so DeFi Dome, by the way, my favorite feature is a more aggressive one because it's active. Everything else in the Insight engine, the result, like the diligence tools, the approval manager, the firewall, the monitoring system will all give you notification to the user, and we'll let the user make the decision how to act on it, right? So we might tell you, do not sign this transaction, but it's your call if you're gonna decide to overlook it or not, right? DeFi Dome is meant for situations where we don't have that time, right? So we're not only monitoring the blockchain, we also monitor the mempool. What if we see in the mempool a transaction that is so destructive to you that you're going to be losing all your money in a few seconds, right? At that point, it's almost annoying to send a notification to the user and tell him, well, in the next block, you're going to be losing all your money, right? What is the user going to do if he even gets the message on time? We want our customers to be able to sleep at night and not constantly have to worry about checking our system. And so DeFi Dome is meant exactly for that. So for example, we're obviously we're not custodian, we don't touch money, we don't have private keys, but we do get from customers the permission to do certain things on their behalf. So for example, if there's a transaction in the mempool that says, I'm going to empty Kevin's wallet in the next block, what we're going to be doing, the monitoring system is going to trigger DeFi DOM, and we're going to be sending our own transaction that you let us permission to sign that says we're going to be moving the money from Kevin's wallet A to Kevin's wallet B, right? We don't have access to A, we don't have access to B, but we have the permission to move it between your wallets. And obviously wallet A has been compromised, so this is important. And we need to front run the attacker to get there. So we need to get in the same block, and we need to get ahead of him within the block. So we call it a white hat as a service, and we're happy to do it.
Yeah, that's great. I have, I'm sure there's a lot of technical questions that we can kind of dive into that, but in like the spirit of keeping it high level, one of the questions that we got from the audience is, for those who aren't engineers by background, how do you actually diligence all the different smart contracts? I think in prior conversations between us, you mentioned that the Redefine platform has monitors over 200,000 smart contracts across over 5+ different blockchains. How is Redefine actually kind of going out there, smart contract by my smart contract, and saying, hey, this is a safe, this is a secure smart contract, this is an exploitable smart contract, this could be a hack? Do you have people outsourced that are kind of punching in information, or is it something more automated or more systematic?
So it's mostly automated in the sense that, first of all, for every blockchain we go, we would first go to the first, 2,000 smart contracts that are most commonly used, right? We'll do that automatically, and we're going to cache this information and then update it every time. But then every user, whenever they put whatever smart contract, let's say it's something we haven't looked at before. I don't care if it's deployed 5 minutes ago, it doesn't matter. It's going to take us 20 seconds to run the valuation. So this could be something that we haven't looked at before, and you're going to enter it in your due diligence system. And then automatically, we're going to be starting a lot of questions. Some of them are more basic questions, like, who's behind this protocol, who deployed it, how was it paid for, stuff like that. And some of it is really running like tools on the language of the contract, on the code, using symbolic executions tool to see what is this contract doing really. And then within those 20 seconds, we're going to give you, a number, and that's our risk score.
Do you see yourself kind of let's say, fast forward a year or two from now, using actually artificial intelligence or machine learning to kind of inform your analysis? I think, some of the kind of leading cyber companies that are, in the Web2 world that are publicly traded, tend to have adopted AI tooling to do prediction and preventative detection for attacks based on the information that they have. They say, hey, this smart contract is safe, this smart contract is unsafe, and then they kind of use that to inform future smart contracts. Is that something that you see Redefine doing in the future? Especially, I'm sure, a lot of people have with ChatGPT and OpenAI, people feel like, OpenAI is kind of entering a new era.
Yeah.
How are you thinking about incorporating AI into Redefine workflows?
Yeah, so there's actually a cool feature now with ChatGPT that is doing kind of like a score on smart contract that we're deploying now in our system. So yeah, absolutely. I think this is the future. At the end of the day, this is a data company, and data science and all those things, these are going to be the tools that we'll be using. So yeah, it's exciting. In terms of the technology, I think this is why we chose to get in this field, by the way, because this is endless. The level of how deep you can go here, it's endless, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's great. I'm excited to test those features out. I think we have one more question that I see, which is, we talk a lot about crypto security today. For all the investors that are kind of dialed in, what would you say are kind of the top security reminders or best practices for those who are transacting or interacting with smart contracts with the blockchain?
Yeah, so this is a great question. I think, first of all, the basic is never do blind signing. Never, ever accept that. Always use a tool that runs a simulation before every transaction and that gives you visibility and clarity about what you're signing. That's a must, right? Then I would also say that if this is Uniswap you're transacting with, still you have to run a simulation because Uniswap can be under an attack. But if it's something else, then also run a due diligence prior to this. Understand what is the protocol that you're working with. Of course, it's really important. I would say install monitoring tools as well. So you could sleep at night. We've been talking to traders, and I hear people tell me things like, I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do, I go to my computer and I have a heart attack until I open it to know if the money is still there. This makes no sense, right? I mean, this must stop. Use monitoring tools for sure. And of course, there are a lot of best practices, mostly I think, that need to be adopted by the platforms themselves. So sadly, honestly, I don't want to say 100%, maybe 90 or 80% of the attacks that we've seen could have been prevented by just a more mature understanding of the protocols of how to manage their keys, how to manage their employees, what to do. Like, what do you do when you actually control financial assets of other people? So unfortunately, DeFi is very young. Oftentimes, a lot of the protocols are super excited, entrepreneurs, brilliant with a lot of ideas, but they never held, other people's money as assets. They don't have the training, they don't have the understanding. This is not something that really defines us, but there are other companies. So go consult with a company that will help you build the right practice, because honestly, I mean, those attacks, I mean, everybody loses, right? So, and we should all work together to avoid them.
But I think so much of the challenge is educational. Like in Web 2, and forget about crypto for a second. Like people can't even like remember their password. They reuse their password across every account that they have, and then they get they have their accounts hacked, and like even the most basic systems that people are responsible for securing, they don't do a good job, traditionally speaking. So I think that there's obviously people that are very technical and understand the blockchain really well and are tech savvy and security savvy that can use the technologies that we've kind of discussing and the approach and the methods. But if you're talking to a traditional family office or a traditional institution, you're like, hey, do simulation on your blockchain, like ensure that like you're not doing blindsiding. That's going to go over their head. So how does a company like Redefine, or overall the public, how do they actually teach and educate the broader audience who's trying to understand the new challenges that crypto imposes, to kind of like actually use these technologies? Because I can guarantee you that most people who transact on Coinbase or Gemini or whatever exchange that they use don't even think about running simulations on their transactions. Really, it's only the more sophisticated institutions that may say, hey, we know that this is a risk out there. We need to know how to protect against it. How do you bridge the gap?
And it's fine. It makes absolutely a lot of sense. Meaning, I don't expect traders to know security. This is not scalable. Absolutely, just contact Redefine, call me, contact another security company. It doesn't matter, but understand that security is a profession and that you need an expert to help you with it. I absolutely agree. I speak sometimes to funds and they tell me, oh, we want to build it ourselves. And I say, really? Because, I mean, do you build your custody yourself? Do you build your antivirus yourself? Why would you want to build those things yourself? This is not only that it's hard to build and it's a profession, but this is an arm race. It's not going to be, it's not going to end when you're building it. This is going to continue to be harder and harder. What we do, this whole prevention, detection, and respond thing is an expertise. We've been doing it, as I said, over a decade. And I would really think, if you're a family office, definitely call security. I mean, you wouldn't dream of not securing your inbox, right, or your computer. I feel like people say, oh, I only transact in Uniswap, so it's safe. But if you do if you compare it to Web 2, you're not going to say, oh, I'm only going to Amazon and the website is very secured, so I don't need an antivirus on my computer. Nobody would say that, right? Everybody understands they need to protect the endpoint. And in crypto, it's exactly the same thing. So how do you run a simulation? It's very simple. You call Redefine or you call anybody who can help you with it. You install tools and they do it for you.
Shira, excellent. Thanks so much for your time. This has been great. I think everyone has enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, thanks everyone for joining us. There'll be a recording for those who couldn't make it, and thanks again for joining, and we'll look forward to the next ParaFi Fireside Chat series. Thanks, Shira.
Bye.